Sometimes I master time, and sometimes time masters me. All right.
I just love how he flipped on the screen. That was weird.
All right. So welcome everyone.
Hey,
Here we are in our Q&A session once again. So welcome. Mm.
okay.
Namaste.
Do you want to do announcements first?
Yes, let's do whatever there is.
Sat Shree. I already gave her a fair warning.
Okay. You need your mic.
Isn't there one down there?
No, I mean you.
I have mine.
Oh, you do. Hey, look at you, right here, right there.
Exactly, it's how I feel
Gather
too.
today. Good to see you all. So I'm here to let you know and invite you to join a Sat weekend that's coming up next weekend from the 29th to 31st of October. And this program is part of the GTP3. And New Dharma has graciously opened to the global community. So all of you are invited to join this Sat weekend. I think many of you know that the Sat weekend is really an immersion on the Sat, the source of our being. So there's a lot of meditation, and we're going to bring some talks and topics that are very relevant for the awakened beings at this time of transition. And the majority of the program is led by the GTP3 team and participants. And Sat Shree is going to come and kick us off on the opening. But after that, we cook ourselves together. And there's something that happens when we come in an energetic and intentional gathering that, we co-create what's possible. So this event is going to be donation-based. So it's up to you how much you can give. We really are really looking forward for your presence. And so we're going to be in the midpoint of GTP at that point, and the energy is very strong, it's very tangible. And we invite all of you to partake of this vessel and bring your being and your presence to it. So we all gain for coming together with this intentional purpose, dedicating 3 days of silence and some inquiry to the truth that we are, and dedicate to the source of what we are, the Sat Force. So I welcome you all to check the website. Natalie put on the My Networks today. Our webmaster is on break, so we're not going to be able to advertise as much as usually we do. But we welcome you all, and you can always ask questions if there is something that is not clear for you. If you do feel called, we ask that you participate in the full program. So all the meditations and all the talks, because that's what makes the container and creates the integrity and can really make something happen. So I welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
So it's one of the miracles and the mysteries of this time we live in, that this capacity to be a channel or instrument for the Supreme Being is more accessible no matter where you are in the journey, as long as there's a certain degree of alignment. And that it's going to come through us proportional to however we've been able to organize and empty and prepare ourselves in our own yoga, in our own journey. So what happens is it's not just human beings holding the space, it's spiritual beings holding the space. And in that atmosphere, it's my experience that the Sat Force comes in. It doesn't need just one person who lives in the Sat to do that. It can also be done by a collection of people to do that. And this, of course, is the foundation of evoking the Sat Force, and as a facilitator or in a group inquiry, even if it's silent within yourself. Because as soon as we tap into something greater, we orient ourselves to receive this new consciousness and bring it into the space that we're in. And those who are holding this space are going to have a unique treat in terms of the intensity and the transformational effects. The core team that holds the space of any program share proportionally the benefit of being an instrument and channel. So it's a discovery I wish for all of us to learn. And therefore, this program is unique in that way, is that it'll be, other than my introduction, it will be you doing it. And those who are creating this in the GTP3, this is really, I see, as the advanced work of being able to more attune and more get recognition of what it is that's happening for you as you universalize yourself for the world. So it's an opportunity to be part of that, to contribute to that. And the way you do that is it's not about the money, it's about the commitment and the willingness to align, to participate in a co-creation that'll be shaped not only by the participants with GTP3, but also to any of you who feel called to join in and participate. So it's an exploration, it's an adventure, but it's also, I feel, one of the test cases of what's possible for us as collective humanity in moving forward. So I wanted to know that this thing is not just sort of like another keep people busy thing. Not that it's ever needed. Usually, if you weren't busy in your life, you really become busy in the life when you enter your spiritual path. And part of the problem of that is really the nature of why we need guidance, why we need other points of view, why we need to reach out so we can get some perspective. Because it's one thing to be called to a path, and it's another thing to walk it. Walking this path is not a journey that's easy for the ego. And of course, that's you. And that struggling is often obscures what was really clear in those moments of aspiration and longing. So it is inevitable that we'll come to the point where we will question, what are we doing? Why am I here? Why should I put up with this? What is Sat Shree doing to me? Or what is this path doing to me? Or this bullshit book, Gita, or mother book? You know, it comes to a place where we lose track. So I do see that questions and answers help. And how they help? They help by giving another perspective. They help by having you come forward with the deep, dark things you don't want to tell anybody on the spiritual path because you don't want to get kicked out or whatever. But you want to actually start learning to recognize what's going on with you with the assistance of others and the assistance of whatever is the source of guidance. In our case, it's myself, it's the mentors, there's other people who are participating with you on this journey. Because what happens is when we lose access to our aspiration and longing, our consciousness contracts into its familiar territory. And therefore, it loses the vista, the vantage point, the perspective that allows it to say, oh, well, whatever it is, it's worthy. And so therefore we lose the ability to keep aligning with when those contractions comes, where we are, instead of being the contraction, we're in presence with the contraction, where we gain some authority over it and learn to be with it. So much of our work, and by the way, this may answer one of the questions that came, is learning how to be with the contracted state of consciousness when it arises, not to dig it out, because then we create it again by looking for the shit that we know is there, but right now we're not in access to. You don't need to dig it out. It'll show itself. This learning to become skillful in recognizing that the crankiness and the bitching and moaning and the nasty projections are actually signs of your contraction, rather than signs of truth, of what's real. Because that's the nature of the contracted state. You believe you are that state. And of course, it's going to come back and then expand and come back and then expand. And it'll come at different stages of the journey all along, the whole journey. It's my experience. I am subject to it too, because I'm in the midst of the three gunas, and I refuse to isolate myself from the opportunities of life to keep discovering what may be there, what be the next level of depths. But there comes a point where you just don't know you don't know, where the contraction is so deep. The only thing you have left is the old strategies of your ego, to run, to be angry, to be resentful, to just find a way out, or to bypass the whole damn thing, if some way you can. And on the higher spiritual path, we do it by staying high. We do it by using those as resources. And actually, we need to for a while. We need to, but not to bypass our contractions, but to be able to be more capable of being with them when they come. Because ultimately, we have to own the territory of that contraction before it becomes expanded as well. So the questioning that is really of importance is of your own process, your own journey. It goes in two categories, and your capacity and your worthiness. And since you're in charge of your worthiness, without perhaps knowing that, then you have something to do with that. And you're in charge of your evaluation of your incapacity. You have something to do with that. It's learning that you are the source of all your answers, that you are the solution to your problem, comes when you're no longer in the consciousness of the problem. So it will come, and then it will go, and then it will come again, and then it will go again. So I always say, the secrets of all secrets to answering your questions is to endure calmly, be patient, have faith, because that will then reveal yourself as the source of all the answers. Of course, you've got to recognize that's what you're doing, and then begin to let what's arising to unfold of its own. Because there's nothing better than to exquisitely experience the nature of your predicament for a sufficiently long enough period of time that the answer can be revealed, that the solution can show up. This is why faith is such a powerful tool, that we just say, it'll come, when's it coming? It's going to come. I just have to keep the actions that keep me aligned with my aspiration and longing. And that is the one thing I can say. Whatever inspires the longing or the aspiration is the greatest access to your faith that you have available to you. It is the nectar that will answer all your questions, that will bring you the strength and the patience to go through the necessary process of disengaging from that which has kept you in misery and bondage for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. Okay. Let's just let that settle. I used to consider this one of my light programs.
Mhm.
I don't think light's in my vocabulary anymore. So sorry about that. It's one of the reasons I'm trying to empower you to come forward, because I know that I bring too much of this force to what I do. So the more of you that can come forward and be intermediaries, the better it'll be for this work. And the more you answer your own questions, the more you're useful for others who are come to the same stage that allowed you to come to your answers. That lived wisdom, that lived experience is the wisdoms. And the wisdom, of course, becomes a quality of your being. And that is what we're enriching through our lived lives. All right, so that said,
Okay,
we're
our
going
first
to
question.
we're going to come back and review a series of questions that came in, and then we'll open it up either at the end or somewhere in the middle for any of you who may have other inquiries. I'm doing this really to help show how to hold a question. When a question comes to you from someone who's sincerely seeking, you attune to where they're coming from. What's the paradigm that they're currently in? Are they in the contracted paradigm? Or they're in an expansion paradigm where they're just trying to discover what it is that's coming. They're trying to mentally understand and know, because we love to know. We love to figure things out. We love to kind of clarify it. And there's a role for that in supporting our ego as we go through the stages to get clear, to have the right information, to have an idea, oh, this is that. It's not something that is bad. It's just something that happens, or whatever may be the particular conversation.
Okay. Let's do the question.
I'm kind of trying to answer all the questions at once.
I know,
That's
you
what I'm
are.
trying to do.
All right, so our first one is from Caroline.
All right, Caroline.
Okay. I have noticed that since I got here to Washoe Valley, I don't experience nor can I invoke the Sat force as I normally do. When I am at home, it is most often experienced like a strong force with a burning and fixating quality that comes from above and runs through my body down to my first chakra. When I am here, there is instead a sense of a soft holding presence, which does not bring with it the usual strong felt qualities in my body. I also feel lighter, and as if the boundaries of my body towards the outside are not as clear as usual. Thank you for bringing clarity regarding this with love and gratitude.
Well, it doesn't sound so bad either way. So it's not coming out of, it's probably really coming out of curiosity. How is it that this way? Well, part of it is, first, the fact that you can, on your own, experience the Sat force. That's clear evidence that you opened yourself to the Sat force and it's available to you. But what happens when we come into a physical community where there are all kinds of other people around you day in and day out, and you join with other people physically, you start, most developed spiritual beings have an open aura. And so they start picking up the environmental energies. And in the nature of that particular situation, be it Walmart or the residential program, the vibrational field comes in and affects your ability to align. Part of it is because human egos are very oriented to everything outside. You're kind of, not only as a human being where you're alert to what's around you, perhaps, not always, with your hearing and seeing and sensing of other people and movements and so on and so forth. But when your psychic being is developed, it has a alertness that's picking up all around it. Even though maybe consciously you're not paying attention to it at that moment, it comes in and influences you in terms of your ability to be intact. That means to be in your own space, right? We talk about space in GTP3 and GTP2, is that your own territory of your body and the space is yours to claim, as a matter of fact, necessary to claim in order to traverse the journey. You've got enough baggage yourself. You don't need the baggage of other people around you. So you pull in your energies and you organize yourself within that central core of your own truth. That is the individual part of you, the core self, the central self, which chooses to collaborate with the Supreme coming in, with the Divine coming in. So when we do that, when we learn to pull back, tighten in our aura, discard and ground the unnecessary psychic energies, then you can find yourself more present. And in that moment, the Sat force is right available to you. The presence that lives within your body is the embodied Sat. It is the Supreme Being. When you pull yourself into that, your own space, it's there with you, even if you're not experiencing anything, because what happens when you open to the Sat force, you open to your ultimate universal body. And so it opens up in you. And it has a sense of direction. It is absolutely true. It has a sense of direction. It can come from above, from all around, from below, from behind you, from in front of you. It can come in any direction because your body has directions. It has a front and a back and a left and a right side. But it's there for you to evoke. Learning to live in that space dynamically, where you're engaged in life, yet that is where you reside, then everything the Bhagavad Gita talks about becomes true to you. It becomes your truth. Because you will be the presence in which everything shows up. There won't be an investment in outcome because this quality of yourself has no investment in outcome. It has no expectations. It is free to live, to be, and to meet whatever is arising in life without an agenda, without an expectation, without a demand or insistence. So this is the path, and you're traveling. I'm looking at Caroline, by the way, right? She's sitting right in front of me in the front row in this room. So she's getting this really directly. And it's part, I know she's realizing this. She's found her space, and that will grow in time. And then the distinctions between the two will be less important. The other thing that's happening in her particular system is she has a tendency as a Shakti form to give her energy away. So the tendency is her diffusing her energy into the environment, but not only through attention, but to help, to be in connection and all the rest that happens with the Shakti. So this is the problem with the Shakti organizing for truth, is they have to pull back from the bliss and the love and the good connection, the good feeling. Yeah. So you're sacrificing that part. No one would want to sacrifice that. Not any ordinary spiritual being would ordinarily sacrifice their bliss. But that is what coming to truth asks of us at some point in the journey. But don't worry, you'll have all the juice and Shakti you want when that time comes. You won't have to sacrifice. Matter of fact, you should wallow in it for as long as it comes, for as long as you can, until you're completely saturated. And then you'll find the capacity to go beyond the bliss. Till then, this is specific for a few people who already are saturated in the Shakti. Okay. So there you have it. You're welcome. Let's go on to the next one.
The next one's John Susan. Dear Sat Shree, I have been practicing a hard style of, is it Qigong? Qigong. For the past 8 or 9 years. It involves striking the body, beginning very lightly and gradually increasing stimulation over time. At times, I found this practice incredibly resourcing, empowering, and grounding. However, sometimes I find that I don't have much energy for it, and I have recently begun to question my overall alignment with this practice. There have been very heavy, slow, deep, and inward states in the past few months, especially after GTP2, but I have been going much slower with the practice. My intention by engaging with this practice is for health and longevity of the body, so that I can remain in human form serving my purpose for as long as possible. I welcome any insights you may have. Love, John.
Yeah. So, John, your intent is actually perfect. So, therefore, whatever you do or don't do is going to work. I think right now you're in a kind of an immersion process, energetic immersion process, and I can see the benefit of it and how it can kind of get in the way. Not much. Grounding is the key. But because it's a specific practice, we make rules about the practice rather than use what's really useful at the moment. And since you're right now immersed in a process of your own transformation, then the best thing is to moderate it or use it when the inclination is there, or in the recognition that the states you're going into are disassociating from your ability to function. So you need to ground yourself. I think it would be a perfectly fine practice to help ground yourself in your body. Overall, I do say the issues of health and exercise, diet and exercise, can be quite helpful on the spiritual path, because when these states come in, the body gets overtaken, and if it's not hasn't enough inherent health, then the lack of health gets in the way of your ability to receive it and ability to process it through your system. So it helps to have a healthy body and to eat in a way proper for your system, and it's unique to each of us. For example, for most of my awakening, I was absolutely vegetarian. I mean, without a question, because vibrationally it felt correct. But at some point, I recognized that I needed more density in my body. And so I started eating chicken and fish. And it made a remarkable difference in the stability of my system. So varying where we are on the path and varying what it is that works, rather than the rules we make around these things. It's the rules we make around these things that has us lose access to what our body is actually telling us. These things very much can help, especially with the intent of having health to live long enough to be of service to the world. There was an inherent recognition that I wanted to have this body last. And I look now that the reason for that is so that this manifestation can continue for as long as it can to serve this time. And it's possible. You know, my father lived to be, 94, 95. So it's not genetically unreasonable. But I find that people who have those kinds of histories where parents die young go through those phases, meeting it without dying at that time because of a conscious intent to keep living. So we have a terrific power within ourselves to set the course of our lives if we just have enough faith in acting aligned with that. So it becomes your own compass, your own thing. You wish to live a long life, then eat well. You know, you wish to have friends, be friendly, right? If you wish to be loved, then love. These are simple formulas that allow us to recognize how we create our lives. Yeah, and there's no problem with you, John. You know, I know it's funny how I was much more worried about my health when I was young than when I got older. So I was more fanatical about things like diet and exercise. It's kind of faded away and lightened up, and it's so much easier.
You still exercise.
Yeah, I do. I mean, maybe compared to most people.
Chocolate cake every day.
Yes.
Every day.
A little piece.
Yeah, but
I recognize
it's
all I need is the first 3 bites, and then it's done. Yeah.
People are always saying, "What does Sat Shree eat?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, I eat a lot of yogurt, a lot of fruit,
and
her
chocolate.
Coffee cake in the morning.
I make him coffee cake. Eats it every day.
Yeah, and I have a little piece of coffee cake. So I discovered a long time ago that it's very enjoyable to eat food, right?
And chocolate.
But I don't need
Trader
much of
Joe's.
it to enjoy it. As a matter of fact, I enjoy it more. And then I have it only once a day. No, and so, okay. What do you have a body for but for enjoyment, right?
Okay, anyway.
It's good to lighten up here, guys.
I think
All right.
that's actually the message.
Yeah. All right.
All right, so this question is from Katie from Sweden. I would like to ask a question regarding how we sit during the meditations. My experience is that it has been very liberating that we should make it comfortable for ourselves when we sit. It differs quite a lot from what others have communicated, and this feels much softer and nicer, and I've had much easier continuing showing up for the meditations because it has not felt so hard or painful. I think what I'm asking for is the background or thought behind it so I can understand the difference between different ways of doing it. This is always my favorite question.
She who loves to recline. Anyway, the nature, her favorite furniture in the house is the bed. So anyway, the nature of...
We just made that up.
Yeah, wherever she is, it's a bed.
Yes, it's about being why you have us be comfortable during meditation.
We're revealing each other's secrets, honey.
Yeah, well, we'll start revealing yours
this
too.
is
if you don't be
revenge.
careful.
Well, you were talking about it.
All right.
This is fun.
I'll start giving tours of the house if you're not careful.
Well, there's nothing there. Go ahead. It's all emptied and torn up and a mess. There's no, we don't have a place really.
Yeah, we do.
Actually, I do.
We have a meditation
They have
space.
not completely destroyed my room. All right. So the nature of what I realized early on that there are two paths to meditation. One is through the discipline and the effort, and the other is through the relaxation and letting go. Because our being loves meditation. When we just are with what is, meditation comes naturally. It's a moving into relationship to nature, to the relaxation in your body, to the sense of calmness. You know, it's a vacating the ego, a vacation from the ego. So it's not uncommon for human beings to relax, right? So relaxation is actually when we're closer to our being. Now, in relax, we can be upset, you know, physically relax, we can have our mind running. And then, of course, that gets in the way because the whole system's interconnected. But when I began to do this work, then the first thing I had realized, going back, I got three things. First, I was sort of a natural meditator. I didn't need to do much to access the state of meditation. Action was a more challenge for me, especially as a young man. So it was always there, and it didn't take much for me to access it. So it wasn't anything I had to work to get. And when I was in high school, I think I practiced meditation, and it was wonderful. I mean, I could have sat half hour, 45 minutes, not a problem, not even a question. So meditation was sort of natural already. And when these states came, and after my awakening, these intense states, well, they meditated me way beyond what I would be inclined to do naturally. But I noticed it didn't take any care what position I was in. If I was laying down or sitting up or standing or driving a car, it came and just came. So in those conditions, of course, meditation is, you know, if there's water everywhere, what's the use of a well?
And then there's the rest of us.
Yeah. And part of that is learning to discipline the habit of the body's rajas. Or otherwise, Thomas is a more collaborative meditator because it just goes to sleep. And that's the problem with meditation, natural meditation, is if you didn't know better, the body says, oh, good, a nap. You know? So, but at least it says, oh, good, a nap. So without an outside energetic force, you will have to apply effort at least some stages of the time to develop the capacity so that you can meditate. Most of us live in environments that are not conducive to meditation, including a family life, right? And so, or work life, or some cities and dense areas of where humanity gather, you're not allowed because of all the, like we talked of earlier, the influences that are around you that are in endless activity. Only at night, and then you're so exhausted you sleep like everybody else. So what I discovered for me was that there was a time when the forces were no longer there. They just quieted. After about a year and a half, 2 years, they quieted for a period of time. They would quiet periodically. And then I would have to meditate to access some approximation of that state. So it became a maintenance thing. And because I was in India at that time, and I'd given up my job and my outer activities and my family and everything, I had nothing else to do. So I just sat. And it made no difference, really, but it was good to be upright somewhat. And it was good to be able to be relaxed and comfortable. But I got to tell you, in India, everybody meditates in no pillows, bones hitting against hard floors, all marble floors everywhere, concrete floors, and for hours and hours and hours. And the only thing that keeps them busy is they're endlessly chanting. But so it was very uncomfortable. But when I came back from India, my body had developed the strength to be upright and to sit uncomfortable for long periods of time. And I said, well, that doesn't seem like an attainment. It seems like something you taught your body how to do, like exercise. So when I came to start teaching, it was clear to me that I was bringing in a force that didn't require you to have a lot of effort to get access to it, that it was just helpful to be relaxed and comfortable, but not so comfortable that the Thomas in you would unduly overtake you. So no laying down. As a matter of fact, the secret formula is 45 degrees, that you're reclined 45 degrees or more. And that's true for many of you who are used to laying down when you sleep at night. When the energy gets really big in your system, and it's coming in very strongly, when you're sleeping at night, evokes the Thomas, and it makes the force have to struggle harder in your body. And so it can prevent you from truly the system resting. So if you support yourself, it doesn't have to be the full 45 degrees, but you allow the force to flow through your system more easily, and your night rest will have periods of time where you'll be gone and the body recovers, and you won't have the fatigue that goes into the day, because the body is habituated to sleeping. And it's my experience that it needs, in my system, it's about 1.5 to 2 hours of actual sleeping before it restores itself. But that can be done sitting up, where I blank out during those periods of time. And the rest of the time, I'm in the middle worlds, and I'm in everywhere. But the body gets its rest. So I don't have a bed in my room. I have a chair just like this. I sit probably in the same posture as here. I'll cross my legs, or I'll have a footstool. And basically, I notice that my body has been quite resilient as it comes out of sometimes extremely intense series of days, like 9 days and 6 days. Then if I ever lay down, I can't actually lay down anymore, because the Thomas creates a problem in my body, and it just becomes too uncomfortable. So I have to sit up. So it's the natural meditation pose. I visited St. Francis of Assisi's monastery in Assisi once, and they were tiny little rooms, and the beds were all stone, but they were reclined. In the monasteries, in Christian monasteries, they were like this. They weren't like this, or they weren't like this, like India. You just stand alone or you fall over. So this is just a recognition that when there is an energy, the discipline of being vertical is less important, because the energy will align and awaken the system when you're more receptive to it. If you're struggling to keep yourself upright and in a rigid posture, you get in the way. The body gets in the way of being able to receive the full transmission. It's my experience that the force that comes through the soft force is for the body. It's in the body. It is the body that gets the best juice. It's other spiritual energies are more for the consciousness and the transcendence, but this is for the transformation. So they do the operations when you're laying down prone on a bed or slightly inclined anyway, right? So be comfortable while the operations are going on. And the force will bring its own anesthesia, so you don't have to worry about too much pain.
Okay, we have to finish up. I'm keeping you on track. Lena, this is from Lena, who's on today. Dear Sat Shree, I am having such a hard time formulating my question as my consciousness changes from being very open at one moment and any question is very apparent, and then a closing down where I have to search for any relevant question. Anyway, in my effort to find the question, I am often wondering if I am trying to fix myself by being too focused on learning about healing childhood trauma, or is there another way, just dropping all ideas of studying this and just let be whatever is, not trying to learn about or fix anything. It is so exhausting to try to find healing modalities that does not easily appear in my life. So it seems that I am caught yet in another duality, do or not do. This seems to be a pattern that has appeared lots of times in many deep questions, and I do not seem to be able to find a solution that embraces both polarities, and this is very painful. How do I find peace in this polarity? Somehow I also believe that if I have such a great difficulty in manifesting what I desire, which is primarily peace and kindness and manifesting sales of beautiful jewelry, it is because maybe this focus is not what I need at this moment in time. And maybe my focus is more on the fixing and manifesting than about surrendering simply to what is.
All right, so I addressed much of this when I first spoke about the whole thing about questioning yourself and the nature of the process, allowing it to show, allow it to become poignant enough, and then addressing it when it arises. Because there is a certain degree of kind of falsity in looking for the problem, in that, like, maybe that's the paradigm, and of course there's a certain paradigm. You watch other people who are vulnerable and in their problem, and they're having a huge shift happen. You say, yeah, I want that too. But that's the mind, that's the vital, coming forward and saying, I want that, another thing to want. As soon as there's another thing to want, then you're contrived when you're trying to find an equivalency in yourself. So relax. The secret here is ultimately it's a poise of being like a tiger or a leopard sitting on a rock waiting for prey. It's a quality of consciousness that's attending. Now, in a panther or a lion or a cougar sitting on a rock, it's sensory. It's in the sensory world. But for us, it's in the psychic domain of our awareness. So we be poised. And what the poise allows us to see is, I'm feeling like wrong. I'm feeling irritated. Oh, look at my mind. It's running and it's got an issue going on. Then in those moments you say, what's the source of this? What's it arising from? What's behind it? So if there's nothing there, then let there be nothing there. I imagine that when it comes your time to share and there's nothing there, you feel like something's wrong with me, or I should have something here. But all you have to do is be with nothing there and you'll find it. Nothing there is a very uncomfortable place, especially when other people are looking at you. So be in the nothing there and then watch what it'll show right up. The other thing is, what I see happening is the mind projecting into the future, drawing conclusions about the past. And that's never a good record of what it is, especially in your case, Lena, because you've had enough shit rise up spontaneously. So if there's nothing there, let there be nothing there. And then watch. If there is truly nothing there, and you're with nothing there, bliss will arise. The bliss of your own presence will arise. So welcome it, and that's evidence that there's truly nothing there. It's not just neutrality. Nothing there is a quality of being that has nothing in the way. And when you attend to that, it gets stronger because your surface personality, your awareness, has a power. And it says, he wants to append. So it's attending to your quality of being. And then everything, there is no issue. Then you spend your whole time in silence enjoying your bliss. Nothing wrong with that. Now there's another thing that can be a factor here. Two other things. One is the inevitable cycles of being connected and not being connected. And they come no matter what. There'll be periods where you're at the bottom of the trough or you're at the top of the trough. And from those two places, you have a complete different relationship with yourself and the world. So you may be in one of those or somewhere in between. Probably based on this email, you're somewhere in between. And that can have that appearancy of nothing going on. And often it can have when you're going down or when you're going up. And what's the factor is the rajas, the restlessness, the wanting, the looking for a problem, thinking there could be a problem, maybe. Where is it? It's that part of you that does that existential dance of where's the problem? Where's the solution? How do I fix this? How do I figure this out? How do I solve this? So it'll never, 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 ever have to come again. And then that can veil your ability to know your own answer, to know that, hey, it's okay to have nothing. But it's my experience that when there's a question about it, it's usually the ego has taken over the context, the paradigm. It's gotten used to the charge of meeting the shit and the freedom that comes when you meet the shit, and wants more of that drama, wants more of that juice, the love of the addiction. The ego lies in every nook and cranny. We just have to be able to ride this and not take any one stage of this too seriously. The nature of this journey, by the way, for most people, process is between 2.5 and 3 days. It's tied to the moon cycle. So whatever process you're in, just wait a few days. Sometimes it's a few minutes. Sometimes it's as soon as you pay attention to it. And sometimes it's a few hours. In the spiritual journey, you're living your lives in accelerated fast. You probably live at least a month every day on the spiritual path, more like a year or 10 years or decades every day. Then, therefore, all this stuff can come up. There's no way you're going to keep track of it. No way you're going to solve it. It's really a learning how to swim, to body surf, the tide of your own transformation, the wave of your own transmutation. And you're doing just fine, Lena. Just in case there was that question, like, am I doing it right? Okay.
Okay. Next one is from Jolene. Dear Sat Shree, in having another dead loved one pass recently, I began to wonder what happens when the soul leaves the body and the reincarnation process. I have had communications with my aunt since her passing. If the soul moves on from her physical body to someone else, how is it that I'm still in contact with her? What can you share about this? Thank you. Love, Jolene.
Ah, Jolene. I mean, I know what this is. It's like a delightful quality of your own knowing that's already there. And this sense that nobody goes anywhere is actually the truth. That's my experience. That's the truth. But I also want to let you know that you're at a certain stage in the development, which I experienced, where the being is beginning to expand in its universal nature. And usually the universe gives you death and dying as the arena which you can serve. And how do you serve that? By being there for that. So the people who are like pulled to doing hospice work, people who come to the spiritual path, they find this wonderful satisfaction in being able to be present with the soul when it makes this transition. Because at least the psychic level, it knows it's moving, even if the human level may have some grief or concern for the person in this dying process. So you become a grease on the movement through the bardos for that soul when you're attending to that. Physical attention or just thinking of them becomes an access to this. And it was very dramatic. I had a dramatic point when both my first wife and I were sitting outside in my little house in Sacramento where I was running programs for Sri Amananda when we heard that my son's body had been found and he had been dead for 3 days. And the second that happened for me, I felt him come through my body and right up to his state that he had before he took birth. And I was like, that was right there in that moment. And my first wife went into a wailing, a cry of anguish and grief that had basically ended her spiritual journey. But in that moment, I had never heard crooning, the crooning for the recently departed, grief at a level of anguish that's unspeakable. Only later did I realize that she had betrayed him by turning against him and joining his wife in her resentment of him. And it was her guilt that made the careen so painful. But it was a healing too. It eventually allowed her to heal. But for me, it was this, wow. And then of course it took a while. It took us some months later, actually maybe a year later, before they started showing up. You know, it showed up because, you know, we're linked. And he'd come back, and I was his teacher before he died. He had turned to me. So he was linked with me, even though he came to his own place. He would just come and say hi and play and dance and all of that. That's been true for everyone who has passed around me. Is really just, it's over. You know, the hard part is being in the human life. The death part's easy. You don't have to change at all. Matter of fact, can't really change in that dimension. Only here can you actually evolve. So there's a relaxation and a relief, and then you get to open up to all those qualities of being that were not accessible to you in the course of your life. Many people can come to this in the spiritual path, that freedom of the psychic being, you know, having after what do you call it, after death experience, where a person dies and then they come back, and when they died, they had relatives come and visit them, and they had this beautiful light, and then, you know, they saw these wonderful worlds. That's true. That's what you do in the intermediary stage. That's very close to this dimension. It can, for some people, it can be just quite wonderful. You're lifted up, but then you got to go through your bardo, so you still have yet the hard work to do. But a few go all the way. They go all the way up. So death becomes a part of the work of one who is transiting out of their individual awakened being into their universal nature, where the individual soul is becoming the soul, the Atman. And then you become an agency for that principle to bring healing to those who transitions. In tribes, it was the shaman that had that quality of consciousness. But often fear of death and fear of dying was much stronger in the indigenous traditions than, especially prematurely, than maybe it is available to us. Most of us live without any question that we live forever, even though our bodies will die. So we have a shock when the body gets injured or an accident or disease. Then it brings you right back down to that tribal kind of consciousness, as, oh my God, I could die. Your own death is actually the real interesting time. I've had a number of experiences in my life where I had been poisoned when I took some LSD, and I spent 8 hours basically going into contractions and spasms, uncontrollable spasms, where everything would stop, and I would be strangled, and I thought, okay, that's it, I'm dying right here. And it went on for 8 hours. When I came out, it was like, I guess I died and came back. Very soon after that, I met Maribamba. So it probably was a death event, that I was poisoned, but somehow I lived. So these things happen when we're in our own embodiment, and when we're in our being. We become an agency for other souls to go through that particular trauma that's mostly cellular, and be able to more gracefully ease. When the body ages naturally, in a healthy way, it's easier for the soul to depart. It's ready. It's like ripe. It's ready to let the soul go. But at earlier stages of life, then there's more resistance, because life force is still trying to express itself. So being there helps the soul in that way. Even if outwardly they're still in pain, they're still in fear, they're still in whatever they may be, your presence becomes the solace for them. And that's where you are, Jolene. And you've had exposure before meeting me with this, so I know this is not new for you. But it's good to share this with everyone else. Oh, there she is. I see you. You're there. In my locating, you're over there. You're locating, I'm over here, right there. Here I am. That's the thing about time and space. All right, so let's go on.
Okay, this one's from John Green.
Huh.
As I write this, I am shaking intensely. I feel the cry from my own body. I can't go on like this. Something else, something has to die. I heard the call and said yes, not knowing how or what I am affirming. I feel the death knell and fear annihilation, really fear that I'll kill myself in this agony. As a hunter, I know death. Nothing of the old works to distract or lie this emptiness. I bring attention to my hips, my thighs, hips, pelvis, belly, and feel the clench and heaving. There comes a faint hint of light, so tiny, disappearing when I look straight toward that light. I can't go to the love as I have in the past. It doesn't alleviate. I have to stay with this sensation, feel the grip, and stop trying to make it go away. From somewhere in myself is a knowing. This is the way. Stay engaged. Sat Shree, when I am overtaken by resistance, doubt, diminishment, all the etceteras, and fear self-destruction, is there more that I can do? You've said it will be brutal. I don't want the brutal with my tender self.
Well, I think you've, I have John right here now, so pick up the mic, John. And I'll just as beautifully written, thank you. And I can feel the poignancy of what you're dealing with. So, yeah, let's stay with that.
If I were standing on the edge, I would jump to I don't know where. And there's a terror of destroying myself.
You know, it's this is a past life. You've done this before.
I have.
Yes.
I've said yes to being killed.
Yes. Or we let others kill ourselves, or we kill ourselves over time. But the nature of that impulse that's so poignant in you is where you took an early escape, an early exit.
Yeah.
And then that then when you come into a new body, that becomes your like back door. Yeah, it becomes the way you don't have to be with what you can't be with or you imagine you can't be with. And usually we can't be with ourselves with remorse and guilt and shame. It's not so much the outer world, it's what we do to ourselves or which we allow ourselves to be overtaken by. So you've had two parts of your nature. You've had the upper part, the upper chakras, which is strive to be a good man, to do good in the world and to serve. But the other part is the running away from this part that wants to die, it could kill itself and it's untrustworthy and you can't, it just doesn't want to be here in this, to meet these diminishing and collapsed and crushed and defeated aspects of yourself. So now you're ending it. You're dissolving the suicide compulsion. And it feels just like this. It feels just like this. It is a gut-wrenching, absolutely almost out of control, diminished condition. And it's a consciousness that has been abandoned, that you've kept abandoned in you.
Couldn't face it?
Not only couldn't face it, it by itself, it can't live. The only reason you've lived pretty successfully so long is because your being has been dominant in this life.
My being is
your being, your true self has been the dominant organizer of this life. Yes. And that has given you a life that you've had now. So now you're in a paradigm of meeting that part of you that is not you now. It's an abandoned part that you've abandoned.
You gave me a piece to work on a week ago or so about that stuckness.
Yeah.
And it's been helpful. I've worked with it a lot.
That's exactly what to do.
And I can't seek it to let go. I can't.
You can't make
look for a result. I don't get a result.
You
I
have
just
to
get an
be
affirmation.
With it. You just be with it. It's like a traumatized child that can't trust anything. You end up being the one that's always there, showing up for it, showing up for it. And then bit by bit, over time, it'll get that you're there. Once it gets you're there, there's a reason to live. So I can go with you there.
See the last.
I can travel with you as you right now go there. Okay, so go to that place in your body right now. Just sit back. Sit back. Be more relaxed than you are right now. Yeah, put the microphone on your thigh or put it down. Okay, and go into that part. And then describe to me, where is this overwhelming compulsion, anguish, despair located in your body?
It's a big area,
Yeah.
but it's especially
Lower.
my belly and my legs, and my buttocks.
Yeah, so it's in the pelvis area
Pelvis.
and in the
My
transition.
genitals, I don't really.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Is it beyond? Is it more
non-existent.
to the first? Is it in the first chakra, the very base?
Yeah.
Okay, oh, that's where it would live. Should I live? Should I exist? Should I not exist? First chakra. It's an existential terror that sometimes comes from being stuck in a body when it dies.
Stuck in the body.
Stuck in a body as it dies.
Yeah.
It's a psychic trauma where you die, life is cut away suddenly, and maybe you drowned or something like that, and your being is still in the body while it dies around you, and it leaves an impression that becomes this. And therefore it's mostly a traumatized part of you that in a transition, in another life, you were stuck in the body while it was dying. And it leaves this dread and fear about death. And therefore it, when it, of course, once it comes out of that, it's fine. But while it's in it, it's stuck in time. So when you now feel into this area, your presence, especially because of your relationship with me, is letting that traumatized, abandoned piece of you know you're there. And you don't have to do anything, but in the process you separate yourself from that consciousness, because that's what's happened. You got caught up, you got overtaken by that consciousness. And then from this place, you can be the presence for it to be. What it is saying, what its cry and anguish is saying, is really a vibration, an energetic event, where the consciousness is tangled up in a knot of its own creation, well, in part.
It's tenacious. It feels tenacious. When you did that,
Yeah.
I
Got it?
feel that.
Okay, good. So all you want to do is see that part of you. He is your ultimate patient.
Eat.
He is your patient. You are here to heal this patient. You are the one it's turning to. You're the only one it can speak to. This is like your ordained duty, like my son dying, killing himself was my ordained duty, but I of course didn't have any of that consciousness that would be in the way. So you're the one that meets this abandoned part of yourself, one of your many, many parts. But this one is a tough one because it absolutely believed that the only thing it could do was off itself, kill itself. It was a stuck structure. One thing I know and I've experienced with suicide is the regret that happens on the other side of suicide. After 2 or 3 suicides, you just, no. Whatever it is, I'm going to stay here for it. So, you're there. That's it. You know it enough. You don't need to go. Just feel it. You feel it as it, but not allow it to keep overtaking you. Okay, and you got an ally, I'm your ally.
Outline.
I'm your ally.
Ally.
I join you in your intent to heal yourself, doctor. And it's here with you, this piece. It's right now, I can feel. You know, it may not have been your death. It may have been someone close to you that you were psychically linked to. And you unwittingly took on the inclination. That could also be there. Have you worked with somebody who committed suicide?
No one close.
Okay. All right, then it's yours. But that's also what we tend to do. And it's one of the ways we heal ourselves, by being with people who we do intervention work, where we try to prevent people from killing themselves. There's a pull to heal that part of ourselves. So, crisis intervention. These are all parts of what it is to be human. It's not unusual. Most people don't get to meet this. And the fact that you've lived so long and yet it was so passionately intense in you inclines to me that it's either you had a large charge to it, or there is being or a being that has a charge that's keeping it alive. But it doesn't make any difference. You heal it in your own body.
I feel the backdoor aspect.
The back of your spine.
Like it's too much, or it's so close to too much that another gram.
So it seems.
Would be.
Yeah,
collapse.
like that would be it. Okay, good. Be there. That's a very interesting transition. I call it the crack in the universe.
Call it
the crack in the universe.
Yeah.
Especially if it's in your lower spine. That would be great news. It's just like that. It's absolutely your worst nightmare. Absolutely, the one thing, down into the very fundamental terror structures of your reptilian nervous system. I mean, it's too soon for me to say congratulations, but if you want to know the nature of the crack in the universe, that sounds a lot like it. Huh? Could that be possible? Could that be possible? That to be that where you are in your worst, absolute, devastated moment is when you're standing right there next to the Sat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been there.
All right. Then you know.
Quite a bit this past week.
Well, John, it's close. Well worth living for. Maybe you can even convince that entrenched part of you to just hang in there just a little bit more. And then a little bit more then. And a little bit more on top of that. Learning to hold the absolute unholdable, so it seems, is simply choosing to be present with it.
Thank you.
Very good. Told you coming here would make a difference. I told you coming here would make a difference as you were off killing living creatures. Yeah.
We have one little one.
Okay, I have one more.
Short one.
That was juicy. I like that one.
I know. That was good.
All right.
All right, this is from Lisa Peterson. Hi, I am a newbie to New Dharma. Really enjoying the events and community. How do we feel about me participating in morning meditations for 1 hour rather than 90 minutes?
Yeah, you can.
Everybody giggled.
I mean, do what you can do and then just expand it over time and you'll get the benefit. There's no rigid rule. When you're in the field, you appreciate being in the field. Every moment that you're in there serves. It's like a piece of teaching of your body what is meditation. And meditation is a developed quality when we bring our being forward versus our ego, our habit of being, our habit of doing that runs our life otherwise. So yeah, just stick with it. The art of progress is persistence. You just keep doing it. I always like newbies, like bonbons. I just can't help eating them.
Okay.
I don't have enough newbies. Newbies are my dessert.
No. Bridget is working with me and Christina
Yes.
on creating something on the website. We're going
Yes.
to call it Dharma Buddies.
Dharma buddies.
It is a way to bring, to,
Hold new people.
yeah, hold new people.
Yeah.
So that's coming next year.
Yeah.
Thank you,
So
Bridget.
that'll be the job description for those who graduate from GTP3.
It could very well be.
A Dharma buddy. That's your
Yep.
certificate. Have a little badge on here.
Well,
But
you must be asking yourself, what's next after GTP3?
yeah. Be a Dharma buddy.
We have a list.
But it really is a delightful, when doing satsangs with, audience for 2 years, it always seemed to me that when there was at least 3 or 4 new people, it went to a different place. Everybody else is in the grind, in the work, in the labor of doing progress. They come in, they're so innocent. They have no idea what they're getting into.
I like a new Dharma newbie. That's perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I know that probably scares off any newbies that might want to come anyway.
okay.
All right. So, do we have time?
No.
No.
You have time to do meditation.
All right. So we'll just take a few minutes. We'll take 5 minutes, and we'll just sit together.
And our next Q&A will be next month.
Ah.
So there's a lot of programs and travel that are going to delay the next round. And don't forget, we will be in Amsterdam in a month. I think all the programs are sold out except for Fully Human, Fully Divine. So for those of you who are participating in Fully Human, Fully Divine, you can do so in person. Pachikita. And, oh yes, Pachaprem, and I'm not sure who else is going to be there. So, all right.
Yeah, Elizabeth, they're waving.
Rob Doss hopped up, but he'll be here.
Yeah.
Darn.
Okay, so now we're just going to come into your body, be aware of your breath, be aware of what is there for you. There is a Sat Sang, so a song of the Sat as sung. So there's that vibrational field. Feel where that is in your heart, in your belly, in the quietude of your mind, in the relaxation of your body, the openness of your heart. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat Shree. All glory to Supreme. May truth, love, and wisdom manifest. Namaste.
Namaste.
See you all later.
I haven't done this in a while.